the fact that it has garnered so much attention, I think, is a testimony to the fact that these are issues that are still very sensitive here in America. You know, so to the extent that my choice of words didn't illuminate, but rather contributed to more media frenzy, I think that was unfortunate.
He proposes a meeting at the White House. So what happens when the president, the professor, and the police officer sit down? Let's talk right now. And I mean that. Let's talk. We are going to have an open conversation here. I want to introduce you to a few people who are experts on this subject, and we picked them very carefully. Buck Davis is a diversity and inclusion consultant with Global Accent Consulting. Al Vivian is the president and CEO of Basic Diversity. He has provided training to everyone from CEOs to sanitation workers. Both are with me here in Atlanta today. Now I want to introduce you to Ronald Hampton. He is with the National Black Police Association. He is in Washington. And James Andrews is a blogger and a social media expert. He has written about many social issues, especially the present topic. He's going to talk to us about what has been happening on social media about this issue and how we can have a conversation similar to the president, what the president's having with these men online. That's a way to get it to the entire world and do it very quickly. I'm holding this because I'm going to read from, I don't have my computer, so I'll read from Facebook. Okay, so Buck, we'll start with you.
All right.
When this all went down, I would imagine that you saw it coming, and you know from teaching how these things can escalate. Mm-hmm. Why did this escalate? Let me take that back. What's the first thing the president and those gentlemen should do when they sit down and speak?
They should absolutely set some ground rules around how they're going to be with one another, to make sure that they're going to have an open dialogue, that they're going to listen to one another, to make sure that they're gaining each other's perspective. And they sit down and they be open and honest about their true feelings about race and what it feels like to feel like you have been portrayed as racist, and also what it feels like to be portrayed as a thief in your own home.
Okay. What is the biggest stumbling block, not only in this possible conversation, but in conversations like this that you have? Because I know you have them every day when you teach.
Yeah, the fear, for white folk, is the fear of looking like a racist. Mm-hmm. We don't want to have the conversation because we don't want anybody to look at us like we are part of that population who really wants to genuinely oppress a group of people. We don't want to appear like we are racist.
And that's usually and what about for people of color, for, you know, black or brown or Asian people? Is there a big fear there as well?
I think the fear is that they're not going to be heard or listened to, or it may be, here we go again, just have another conversation that won't be valued.
Okay. All right, let's talk to Al. Al, when you're doing this, thank you very much. So when you do this, you talk basic diversity as well. And when he said fear of being a racist, you said, mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because even when I have these conversations, I have it with friends and people I know. I've had this conversation with Buck Davis. Buck talks to me about diversity and about racial issues all the time, and he's one of the most honest people I know about that. But you can't have those conversations with everyone. I try to have it with people, and they all of a sudden clam up, or they're looking for some sort of agenda behind it when it's just to talk.
Yeah, well, the fact is, you have to find the right way to do it. Buck's correct on setting some ground rules. This is how we're going to talk about it. This is what we're going to do. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. You set some ground rules, and then, as Buck said, you got to be very honest. And when you really have created an honest atmosphere, you can get that honest. It may take some time, but once you do, then you got great results. And the reality is, you're not going to get real great results unless you get honest. When everybody's hiding what they think, you don't get to it.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to go to Ronald real quick, and then I'll go to James. So I want to ask you this because I should have followed up. I should have been a better questioner. Why are white people afraid of being thought about as racist? Because there are perceptions about African Americans and about black men, but yet and still people will want to talk about it and are open to discussing it. Why are white people afraid of being perceived racist? What's the harm in that if it gets you to something else?
Well, I think that we don't want to say anything. For the most part, the people that I come in contact with, they want to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. They don't want to offend other people. They want to share their experience. The trouble is that we fear that if we have the conversation, we may stumble a bit. You see, Don, this is a conversation we have not been taught to have. Mm-hmm. We didn't grow up having the conversation. It's not an easy conversation. There's a lot of history behind it. There's a lot of fear for us because we don't want to look like an offender.
Okay. You said may stumble a bit. Hang on 1 second. All right, so I'm going to go to you, Ron. Ronald Hampton, talking about police. You know, profiling is real.
There are people who say this case, it wasn't profiling. It was simply, you know, two people who got into an altercation of sorts and things got out of control, but it was not racial profiling. What are your thoughts on that, firstly, before I ask you about what's the solution?
Well, first of all, I think it reflects or mirrors other profiling situations. Profiling can take place in a number of instances. Profiling takes place when you walk in the grocery store and they follow you around. It takes place sometime at the airport. It takes place at...
But in this incident, though, Mr. Hampton, what about in this instance?
Well, it could be perceived as being racial profiling. I think if Mr. Gates had been a white man, it wouldn't have ended or resulted in him getting arrested. It would have been handled altogether different. Because there's an expectation that he lives in that community, and therefore that's his house.
And you have come across that being a black police officer, those sort of expectations about who lives in what neighborhoods and who drives what kinds of cars?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've worked with guys who've drawn conclusions based on those kind of assumptions, and they didn't know anything about the person other than the fact that they happen to be an African-American person.
Okay, stand by. I want to go to James real quick. James, are these conversations happening online now? Has this sparked something? I know that Michael Jackson, the death of Michael Jackson, Iran did. What is this doing online?
I mean, it's showing that, you know, in the online space, that's where the true conversation is happening. If you want to find out the true heartbeat of America, go to the comment section of the Boston Globe under the article about Professor Gates. There are plenty of honest people who are having conversations. We need to bring those things together. All right.
And do you find that is happening online? That's happening in social media now?
It's absolutely happening. It's happening in Twitter. It's happening in Facebook, in what we call microblogging. You know, these conversations are driving. After I leave CNN tonight, it'll happen, you know, online on my blog, on my stream. Right. It's happening all the time. It's now media.
Let's hope it's constructive. But all of you, stick around, because we're going to talk a lot more about this. Our conversation is going to continue. And if you missed even a minute of Black in America, I want to tell you, which talks about these issues, you can watch it in its entirety. Soledad O'Brien hosts Black in America 2 at the top of the hour. We're back moments away with our conversation. Don't go away.